In the silence of temples, caves, and forests, humanity discovered its hidden strength. Long before the noise of cities, before the constant hum of machines, silence was the world's original language. To the ancients, silence was not emptiness. It was the sound of truth, waiting to be heard. Across every land, in every age, silence became a doorway to wisdom, to strength, to the eternal. And though the faces changed, yogis, monks, priests, shamans, the path was the same. Step away from noise, enter the stillness, and listen. Subscribe and walk with us through the forgotten wisdom of the ancients. For silence is not absence, but presence. It is the root of discipline, the well of strength, and the bridge between humanity and the divine. India, silence as liberation. In India's dawn, the sages sat beneath banyan trees. They turned inward, searching for what lay beyond the senses. The Vedas spoke of silence as the ground of being, the sacred Om, not spoken aloud, but vibrating in the silence of the soul. The Upanishads taught that the highest truths are not argued, but absorbed, in stillness, in listening, in silence. Yogis withdrew to forests, mountains, and caves. Their silence was not escape, but liberation. By withdrawing from speech, they tuned into the unspoken rhythm of the universe. Silence was a practice, yes, but more than that, it was a weapon against illusion, against the restless mind. To sit in silence was to wrestle with the self, and to discover the self was infinite. In the stillness of India, silence became freedom, a path not of words, but of release. China, silence as harmony. In ancient China, silence was the balance between heaven and earth. The Tao spoke of Wu Wei, effortless action, born of stillness. Taoist masters retreated to mountains and rivers, seeking the silent pulse of nature. The rustle of bamboo, the flow of water, the quiet between breaths, all were teachers. To them, silence was not withdrawal, but alignment. In silence, they found the rhythm of the Tao, the great way that flowed through all things. To act from silence was to act without forcing, without resistance. Silence revealed harmony. And in Japan, silence became an art. Zen monks perfected zazen, seated meditation. Here, silence was discipline, as sharp as a blade. In the stillness of their temples, silence was not passive, it was training. A warrior's mind, emptied of noise, ready for clarity. One moment of silence was worth 1,000 teachings. Egypt, silence as sacred. In the land of the Nile, silence guarded the gates of heaven. Egyptian priests performed sacred rites in silence, for they believed the gods spoke in whispers, too holy for the careless ear. The temple walls bore no chatter, only the sound of the eternal. Silence preserved Ma'at, the cosmic order, balance, truth. To break silence was to invite chaos. To keep silence was to hold the universe steady. And in that sacred hush, the ancients felt the presence of gods walking among men. Centuries later, silence became the companion of Christian hermits. In the deserts, far from crowded cities, they sought God in solitude. Their silence was not emptiness, but communion. They prayed, they fasted, and in the quiet winds of the desert, they claimed to hear the voice of the eternal. To them, silence was a furnace, burning away distractions, leaving only faith. Sufis, silence as love. In the heart of Islam's mystical tradition, the Sufis discovered silence as devotion. Their dhikr, the remembrance of God, was often sung, often chanted, but the greatest dhikr was silence itself. For in silence, the heart became the true tongue. In silence, love for the beloved overflowed without sound. The Sufi knew that words are limits, but silence was infinite. To sit in stillness was to fall into the embrace of God. Tibet, silence as eternity. In the high Himalayas, silence reigned eternal. Snow peaks watched over caves where monks sat unmoving for months, even years. Their chants echoed through valleys, yet beneath the chants was silence deeper than mountains. For Tibetan monks, silence was not escape from the world, it was entry into eternity. By mastering silence, they claimed to step outside time, to watch thoughts fade like clouds, until only the vast sky of awareness remained. To them, silence was not the absence of life. Silence was life in its purest form. The Americas, silence as vision. Across the great forests and plains of the Americas, silence was the shaman's path. Native vision quests called for solitude, stillness, and silence. A youth might climb a mountain, fast for days, speak to no one. Only in silence would the spirits answer. The rustle of leaves, the cry of an eagle, the silent glow of stars, each became a voice. The silence of nature was never mute. It was alive, vibrant, guiding. For the shaman, silence was not retreat, but relationship. In silence, they touched the hidden spirit of the world. Greece, silence as wisdom. In the halls of ancient Greece, silence was a test of character. The Pythagoreans, followers of the philosopher Pythagoras, lived by a rule of silence. For 5 years, novices were forbidden to speak, learning instead to listen, to observe, to master themselves before daring to teach others. To them, silence was not emptiness, but preparation. For wisdom comes not from speaking first, but from listening longest. Even the Stoics, from Zeno to Epictetus, prized silence as discipline. They knew that words, once spoken, cannot be recalled, but silence holds its strength forever. Rome, silence as authority. In Rome, silence became a sign of strength and command. The greatest generals led not with endless speech, but with measured silence. A pause could speak louder than an order. To stand silent before soldiers was to radiate certainty as unshakable as stone. The Senate itself recognized silence as power. In debate, to remain quiet until the decisive moment was strategy. The Roman virtue of gravitas, dignity and weight, was rooted in silence. To speak less, but with force, was to rule. Different lands, different tongues. From the sages of India to the philosophers of Greece, from the priests of Egypt to the generals of Rome, every culture found power in stillness. Silence was the bridge between man and God, between self and soul, between the finite and the infinite. To the ancients, silence was not emptiness, it was fullness, not weakness, but strength, not retreat, but return. They knew what we forget, that silence heals, silence reveals, silence transforms. In a world of endless noise, silence is the one voice that cannot lie. If this wisdom stirs your spirit, subscribe and walk with us through history's forgotten truths. Let silence be your guide, as it was for those who came before us. The ancients left us a gift, silence, not to flee the world, but to master it. Silence is the sword of the mind, the shield of the soul, and the path that unites us all. Will you claim it? Subscribe and keep their wisdom alive.